Good afternoon, Sangha. As usual, a couple of announcements before we get started today. We have our 5 mindfulness trainings recitation coming up this Sunday and every Sunday at 10 o'clock a.m. Please join us by registering through the Heartwood website, and you can join us through Zoom. I believe that's also streamed to YouTube. A couple of retreats coming up. We've got Letting Go in 4 Stages with Martine Batchelor, May 15th. That's a Zoom retreat. You can register on the website. We also have Wild Heart Spring Retreat with Andrew Chapman and Mikey Knoll, May 24th to the 31st, and that will be here on site at Heartwood. Venerable Panawati continues to offer a study from the Mahayana discourse, What is Cultivation? That is held on Fridays at 4 p.m. You can also register for that on the website if you haven't already. Thrifty Treasures, Heartwood's new venture, is doing very well. We continue to need volunteer support, so if you're interested in offering volunteer support, you can email retreat@heartwoodrefuge.org. And as well, fully vaccinated Sangha members are now welcome to join Heartwood on site for Sunday Dharma. We have a overflow room set up in the Bodhi Hall for in the event that we have too many people to maintain distance in the Dharma Hall. The Dharma Hall is where the speaking will occur. And we also have an announcement about Final Friday Fun Night coming up, and we'll have Dina share that with us in just a moment. And again, we just want to ask that you like, follow, and share Heartwood and Thrifty Treasures on social media, and we thank you for your support. And if you'd like to donate, you know what to do. Just go to the Heartwood webpage and go to the donate button. Thank you so much.
Your Friday Fun Night coordinator, and on Friday, April 30th, we're having our next Friday Fun Night. Really exciting because we are starting to open up a little bit more of our doors again, which is wonderful for our local community. So it's a great time for us to come together online and really just enjoy ourselves and enjoy the company of our Sangha. On April 30th from 6 o'clock till about 8, we will be doing Everybody Has a Story. So we do. Everyone either has a story of themselves, or a book, or a poem, or a song that you've written, or that you've read that you can share, or lines to something that had a really nice meaning to you somehow. So please come ready to share, whether it be a story about your life, a short book you want, a poem, an essay, whether you've written it. So come ready to tell us your story, please, and keep it from 3 to 5 minutes. If you have any questions, you can email me. It's Dina, and my email address is hikeandrungator, HIKENRUNGATOR or go straight to the Heartwood website, and there will be a link that you can register. So please register, and that will be April 30th, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing your story. Bye!
This too? So welcome, everyone. It's good to be back with you today. You know, I always say that it doesn't matter what you're doing when you've given yourself over to a mission-driven life. So it doesn't matter whether you're chopping wood or carrying water. It doesn't matter whether you're giving a Dharma talk or cleaning toilets. It's all the same. There's something very comforting about living that kind of life, because it releases you, or it frees you from having to be any specific thing. It actually delivers you into the seat of goodness, so that you can find something in every day that makes life worth living. If not for you, then for somebody else. And this is what allows us to have a certain kind of joy, and strength, even under tremendous circumstances. But I wanted to talk a little bit today about the ways of the world that creep into our spiritual life, and to help us to remember that the Dharma is for here and now. So if we get too heavenly minded with the Dharma, we'll be no earthly good. The important thing is to recognize that it's given to help us be able to navigate, to negotiate, and to transcend this guttural kind of living we have that's dependent so much on the erroneous assessment of what is actually occurring in the current moment, because we all have our stories. The minute I relate something to you that has happened, it's no longer that factual. It's actually how I saw it from my side. So it's my story. And that's how we get into so much trouble, because no other way to do it until one's mind has transcended the opinions and the views and the structure of appearances that come from the information that we take in through what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and think. And so if we would constantly bring that to our mind, it's hard to do it in the moment, but when we're reflecting, it becomes helpful, because then we are causing or creating the conditions to cause wholesome mental states to arise in the future. And the more we do it, the more they just may arise at the time that we actually need them instead of after the fact. It also helps us to go through circumstances in a world of beings that have different minds and different bodies. As he said, this particular world is. Some worlds have beings have same mind, different bodies, some different minds, same bodies, some. But this particular world, he said, different minds, different bodies. He said, so how can you expect us to agree? So the first thing is not to have an expectation of agreement. As much as we talk about it, yes, talk about it. Yes, keep reinforcing it. Yes, working towards that goal, but really we can't have an expectation of it. And if we do have an expectation, we will be sorely disappointed, or we will become a source of disappointment. So on one hand, we're learning how to not be disappointed at the perceived failings of other people based on our story, right? And on the other hand, we are learning how to not disappoint others on the basis of their perceived story. And so this requires something. It requires a little bit more understanding. I was going to say effort, but not effort. Really, the more understanding, the less effort. And the more one steps into something simply because they hold that to be true, the more the truth becomes self-revealing. And that's how we overcome the obstacles in our life. We can't work through them. We have to yield to them. And in that yielding is where we find the peace. In that yielding is actually where we find the clarity. In that yielding is where we find our freedom. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we normally think and what a special teacher and master said about that. This idea of getting even, is prevalent. It's prevalent in the world today. It's just prevalent on planet Earth. Revenge is very much in the thoughts of people's minds, even in the thoughts of children. If one pushes one, he immediately pushes him back, right? It's prevalent in the business world, causing others to fail so that one can succeed. It's prevalent in, even in boardrooms and where the members are there to promote and make something grow and develop, but instead they're working 2 or 3 on a hostile takeover. You know, and they say this is the way of the world. Truly it is the way of the world, but it is not the way of the spiritual practitioner. So we have to find other ways to do the things that we have to do. We have to find other ways to look at life, and we have to take the things that the world has called defeat and make those our standard for living, and take the things that the world calls that which glorifies that, and make that a basis for defeat. And that's what the whole practice is. It's like turning upright what has been turned upside down. So when one has taken on this attitude, if you do this to me, that I'm going to do this to you, we're defeated from the start. So whenever one is thinking about how to get even, or when one is thinking about like if something is broken, how to restore, it may not restore in the same way or with the same setup that it was before, you know, but there can still be reconciliation of beings, because that's what it's all about. So I would often say to people, you know, you may not, because the question I would always get would be from women who are in a marriage maybe where they're being abused or something like that, or, you know, and they're trying to find their strength, you know. And they said, so should we just stay there and take it? Like, no, you can say, you don't have to go away mad, but you got to go away, you know, and then make that happen. You know, if they don't leave, you leave. You know, so sometimes there has to be that has to occur so that there can be a restoration of balance, and so that things can be harmonious. But there doesn't have to be any animosity or any revenge or any notion of somebody's done something to somebody. That's what I'm saying. And if we could really get that, there'd be nothing that we could not go through and not feel that it was personal. You know, it's because we think the things that we are engaged in, you know, and the things that happen to us are personal. And yes, it may have happened to you, but knowing that the conditions, the moment something happens, that's not when it's happening. That's the fruit of what's been happening. You know. So you can't fix it in the moment that you recognize, because it's not happening at that moment. It has already happened, and the fruit is now being born. And that's why it's so difficult. You know, if we try to repair things when the fruit is showing up. We have to take some things as a lesson, you know, so that we don't make the same mistakes in the future. But to recognize that the fruit representing is not when something is happening. And what that does for us is it helps us in our dealings to be more introspective in the future, going forward, more reflective, more looking at what is my role, what is my part, how am I creating to something that's going to bear fruit in the future, and what will that look like? So usually we do nothing, or we don't do much, or we want to be liked, so we're going to be careful about how we say this and how we do that. Or we have some reason why we continue to do it, because it seems to be serving some self-seeking purpose. You know, this is good for me, might not be good for everybody, but it's good for me right now. I'm going to just go with it and hope it gets better, or something like that. But you see if we could just take full responsibility, is what I'm saying. We take full responsibility for whatever is showing up in our life. Our story always says it's the other person. So the minute that rises up in your mind, you know, you could like discount that, and that's probably 75% not true. Or even if it was the other person and you allowed it, like what? Can't you take responsibility for yourself? And this is I just love the Dharma because, the Dharma, we call things by labels. This is spiritual and this is, but it's really just about being mature, growing up. We just have a world full of infantile adults trying to run it and messing it up on every end. Yes, I contribute to that. Yes, you contribute to that. Because we haven't had the wisdom of the masters, those who have mastered life, and who can be in this world and yet not of it, and who can offer and contribute 100% of themselves, because there's absolutely nothing that they are reaching for, that they need to make them appear better to others, or that they need to make them seem better to themselves. So I'm asking you, in everything you do, in how you do it, in why you do it, in who you do it for, or in who you do it to, what is your true motivation? And sometimes we'll be shocked because we even fool ourselves, just in our ignorance. We don't know. And when something comes to us, we try to push it down or push it under, too afraid to just look at it. But we're asked to do this. This is our spiritual practice. So, Jesus said one time, speaking to the Jewish people, "You have heard that it has been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that ye resist not evil, but whatsoever shall smite thee of the right cheek, turn him to him the other also." And that goes against everything that the world teaches us about how to handle our affairs. It's like you better get them before they get you. It's like, there was a time when I was really going through something, and a person was spreading a falsehood around me, and some people would rather believe a lie than the truth. I mean, even people with you all the time, that just goes with the territory. I mean, if people are coming in because they're blind, if people are coming in because they're asleep and they want to wake up, then what do you expect from them? You have an expectation that they can understand certain things on a very deep level? If so, what does that say? What does that say about you? So when one thinks that they know, or one thinks that they understand, to whom much is given, much is required. It is then your responsibility then to be the one who carries a situation. It's your responsibility if you think that you have more understanding than the other. You can't think that you have more understanding and expect them to be the one to carry the situation. And so when we encounter a situation that we have to work our way through, how will you work your way through it? Will you keep going back to last week, or keep going back to that thing that happened last month, or that thing that happened last year, or that thing that happened 10 years ago? I have some people who call me about things that happened 10 and 20 years ago, because they've made it up in their mind that they are so important, and that little affront that was done to them, and maybe it showed up and created an inconvenience for them, yeah. But it doesn't have to be something that they put down in their memory bank as vicious or as cruel. It's just everybody doing what they think they need to do, to survive, or what they think is right, or what they think is called for. Now, can't we just take things in that kind of impersonal way? If we did, we wouldn't have itching ears to hear what's going on now. If we did, when we heard things, we wouldn't give much salt to it. It says, oh, another day in samsara. And that's how we can carry on day by day, regardless of what may be coming into our life. And when we are able to do that, then the lesson can drop in deeply. Not trying to justify or make excuses for, or to placate even. You know, we go to these extremes. We either justify something or we try to placate. No need to do either one of them. Just continue to live your life in the truth and the honesty that you can. And not let one isolated incident define who you are. Or define what a relationship was. And in that way, we become true, I won't say Dharma practitioners, but that the Dharma will be in us, living and having its own work in the world. So now this bypasses most of our rational thought, doesn't it? That's why to intellectualize the Dharma is to just really be a fool. Because we're not going to be able to intellectualize it and get its fruit. We have to surrender to it. Particularly that which we find is the most difficult to accept under the circumstances. But it also makes us sharp so that we can turn on a dime. Because we don't waste our energy in unfruitful ways. And that we're always forward looking, not in negativity, but in positivity. As long as I have another breath, there's an opportunity for things to change for the better. Yeah? So I'm wondering today, these words, I say unto you, that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. It's a kind of attitude, you see what I mean? It doesn't mean to let somebody go pound, 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 pound. It's not like that. If you could understand, like grown-up talk. You know? But these things mean two things. One is let the penalty let the penalty fit the crime, if you will. So sometimes a little thing is done and so much comes down on a person because of it. Because that doesn't seem like a little thing to us. So we make it a big thing that requires a heavy penalty. But how gracious we can be to someone when we don't make it a big thing. When we make it a little thing. Then we take the weight off of both sides. And what's left can float to the surface. I wonder if we can correct some things that's going on in our lives today if we adopt this attitude. Small things require a small consequence. Yeah. How big it is or how little it is, that's in our own mind. It depends on how big or how little our story is. So part of this is an inward practice, and part of it is an outer practice. The inward practice is to keep diminishing the story until it becomes like a little speck. Knowing that the more you do that, you know, we generally don't get into that much of a confrontation with strangers, right? So who do we have this conflict with? We have it with those who are dear, those who are close. You know, so this training really is around those who are close to us, those who are in our sangha, those who are in our extended families, those that we work with every day, those that, it's close people. We haven't even figured out how to handle that. But once we do, we'll have no problem with those that we perceive as far from us. I mean, we really won't pay that any mind. Working in the store is a challenge for me because we try here to be, respectful of each other or understanding, or at least to make somebody think I'm practicing, It might not be any more than that, I might be seasoned inside, but not let you see it. I'm not saying that's a good thing. On one hand, it is, go to your own bathroom and handle your business. Don't just be spreading it all over the place. But on the other side, it's not good because we learn how to give a face, a facade, how to give an image to others that's not true, that's not genuine. And the thing is that the more we hide behind that face, the more we lose ourselves. We forget we don't know who we really are. And then there are some that will just see that, Like I travel and go all over the place giving Dharma talks, and they say, "Oh, Paniwadi, if there's a picture the photographer took, and he had me in this nice little photograph of my head resting on my chin." And I said, that's not me right there. Somebody see that picture, and they'll approach me, but they come and live with me, then she's not like that. So let's just give one that's more like me, So sometimes we hide behind a facade, but if we do, we can't work on the things that we need to work on. So I'm wondering if you can think today about a situation that could be easily resolved. If you could say to yourself, "Resist not evil. Whosoever shall smite me on the right cheek, I offer him also my left." Now you're changing a dynamic between you and the other living being. Doesn't even have to change on the other side. Many times it does. Who knows, the person on the other side may be even thinking the same way, but they're not so sure about you. So it's like, you go first. No, you go first. Do you have the courage to go first? And even when it's not accepted, can one rest in knowing that they've done the right thing? Then maybe sometime tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now, the person will think back on it. Their story will have changed because they will have changed. That was just a story. So let us not make the occurrences that arise in our lives into stories. That's the way of the world. And that's how the world is created. But if we want to come out of the world, it starts with not creating stories. Now, it's hard to have this kind of insight unless a story has been created in your mind about something and you wonder, where does this fit into my Dharma? But once you recognize that there's a story, the joy there is in dismantling it is unspeakable. The joy that there is in restoring the principle of harmony is so wonderful. And then whatever else is packed around that will all fall into place. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but bit by bit, because the heart and the mind will be clear. around what truly matters. And then you can just handle the details. And yes, it may feel overwhelming sometimes because you are overwhelmed. It just goes with the territory. If you don't want to be overwhelmed, don't get beyond 6 years old. Because life is going to come with its vicissitudes, its worldly winds, its praise and its blame, its losses and its gains, its pleasures and its pains, its fame and its shame. Just be careful. Because the higher you go or the further you go on one end of the spectrum, know that the other end is coming. So however much praise you want, watch out, because pride comes before a fall. However much fame you want, watch out, because there's going to be somebody talks about it. You know, we have a website set up. That's why I don't think we should have all these things. But we have a website set up for thrifty treasures, you know, and it's really for people to go on and post these wonderful deals. Like, I got a $185 Hoover vacuum cleaner from Thrifty Treasures for only $20, where you purchase with a purpose. Isn't that catchy? Okay, so that's what it is. When you purchase with a purpose. Okay, but you know the only comments on this is, yeah, I bought this and you know there's no returns and this was broken and you just put your trash out here for me. I mean, you know, that's the only people go in and comment. You know, like if they have a beef with you about something, they'll come in and spend $200 on stuff at the store that may be worth $600, but one little thing doesn't work. You know, and they can't think about all the rest that puts them way over the top. You know, in terms of benefit, they just home in on that one little thing and then go post it out on the website. Take that website down. We don't even need it. You know, and I am going to take it down for that reason, because it's people, the idea of ruining others, getting even, passing. Words and judgments on people. Yeah. So our technologies, we say they're wonderful and they can be used for good, but the best technology we have is the heart-mind connection. And the more we fiddle with and create these external things based on impure and imperfect heart, you know, the further we're going to get away from the cultivation of the divine qualities that are resident in us. Things computer can't do for us. A kind of way of when one walks into the room, they command the attention of the room by virtue of the purity of their heart and the wisdom that has been generated in the heart-mind, and not through crafty techniques. It's that kind of thing. So we have to be careful. Yes, we are in this world, but not of it, unless we're of it. You know, just ask yourself the question. And sometimes people think that means that we have to divest ourselves of everything, you know. But I say no. I mean, actually, some things are worthy of support. And if everybody is divested of everything, they're like, well, how could there be support? I'm like, God, that's a no-brainer. So understanding that prosperity doesn't just come to the crafty and the wicked, but it's actually a blessing of the virtuous. And not to denigrate those who have been wise and what do you call it? Because I'm not. What do you call it when you're like when you thrifty's not the word.
Frugal.
Frugal, yeah. It's when one has been scrupulous. We only think of the word unscrupulous, but you know there is the word scrupulous too. When one has been scrupulous with their affairs, so that they can be a blessing to others. We always talk about the rich man getting through the eye of a needle, but there is another side of that. If we didn't think that there was a path to good fortune, all right, what would be the purpose? So there is that path to good fortune. We should rejoice at other people's good fortune and their blessings. If you fight against something, you give it energy. That's what I'm saying. It has only the energy that you give it. If you fight against trouble when it comes, you give it energy. If you fight against, just being confusion and overwhelm, you give it energy. And then it's good to recognize what your skills are and what they aren't. Recognize what you can handle and what you can't. But recognition is one thing. Being consumed by the fear or the not knowing or the confusion, that's another thing entirely. So we have to have a governor, an internal governor that lets us know how far we should consider a thing. That lets us know what's useful in moving forward and what's not useful. This is where the Dharma becomes real in our life. And this is where we can see the fruit of the practice. This is where when we can examine our thoughts, when we can consider and our role and take responsibility for everything that manifests in our life. And I know there's a lot of yeah buts. Well, the fact is, like the biggest one, is that we happen to be here due to causes and conditions. So if you don't like it, if you don't like the unstableness of this world, then you need to do what you need to do so that there will not be a reappearance here. I know I'm trying. Not with my whole heart. Because in many respects, I'm still worldly. Maybe in ways that I don't even see yet. Like if you're trying to look out over at a veil from the ground level, you can't see it, but as you start to ascend up a little more, you can look over and you can see that over there. So sometimes we have to grow a bit more before we can see something. That's why another saying, particularly in the Bible, is let your yes be yes and your no be no. That's it. Because we're not always sure about how far-seated we are. I love this path because the kind of compassion that it fosters is based on something. It's a kind of responsibility that we hold that allows us to, I'm really reaching for certain words today. Because I want you to really get the joy of living an impersonal life. It seems like that can't be good if you're talking about compassion and loving kindness. You know, isn't that a personal thing? Could somebody bring a chair up here? And I want you to see that it doesn't have to be based, you know, on the things we have thought that peacekeeping was based on. How much it benefits us personally. We come into this world alone and we go out alone. So make every breath count. I have a chair up here for her. And are you ready, Travis? Do you
We
have
didn't have an extra jump drive, so we have to sit on there.
Okay, and where's the book?
I'll grab it.
And so in our last few minutes of closing, I wanted to give a space for Barani to speak. Barani is moving to a retirement home tomorrow. A great warrior and spiritual practitioner. And she's been here for years now. And her presence, I think the first 2 years she didn't talk, she didn't speak. Or I think 6 months in, she went into silence. And she was in silence for 2 years. And she came out last year. And as her health has begun to deteriorate, she needs and deserves more help and support. And so we wanted to send her off with our love and to know that she's never alone. Of course, she wouldn't care if she was because she's a practitioner, you know what I'm saying. That's all the things you're supposed to say to people, you know what I mean, Veronica. For those who don't understand, I gotta say some of those kind of things, you know. Okay. And she has a very, well, I'll save that for a minute because she doesn't know about that. But I'm going to let Ronnie go ahead and
I wasn't really prepared to speak. Old age, suffering, and death. They're in all the chants, always reminding us. And it's so easy to say those words. Old age, suffering, and death. And you don't know what you're talking about until you get there. And yet, the Dharma is just as strong and just as meaningful, and life is just as beautiful. But if you remember and remind yourself every day and open up your heart and have compassion, it makes it a lot easier. I am never alone. my teachers are with me. And the overwhelming ocean of samsara suffering is with me. And when you have those two together, you are the most blessed creature that could ever have lived on this earth. And I love you, and I bless you. And my blessings are to Heartwood and to you, my beloved. And I have gratitude more than anything else, more than anything else. So thank you. Thank you all.
And so, I'm okay, they can hear, right? Okay. So, Barani has, thank you, a special book, The Reign of Wisdom. And once or twice a year, on the auspicious birthday of one of her teachers, she would read for 8 hours straight from this book. And I asked her if I could borrow it, and she let me borrow it. She said, I'm not taking much with me, but that book, I need to get that back. And I know it's her favorite book, and it's the sayings of the great Vajrayana teachers like Milarepa, Marpa, Gompapa, and many others, or at least a few others. And they have been like nutriment for her as she became more incapacitated. They became her constant companions, her ever-ready friends and support. And I know that this year, I think Barani read for 45 minutes or an hour instead of the usual 8 hours. And so we got the idea, Barani, that we recorded 10 chapters in the book. Every place you had a bookmark, one of us did the reading there, so that in the future, when you don't feel like reading, you can cook. What did she have?
It's going to be on a little flash drive, and then I'll also put it in a Google Drive, so you can either get it online or you can plug it into something as well.
And there we will be continuing to enjoy these wonderful readings with you and you with us. And in the last 3 days, I haven't gotten no email from Barani in I don't know, a year, 6 months or something. Last 3 days, I've gotten 3 emails about her book. Oh, we both getting old now. So you've been also my guidance teacher. And we'll be out to see you all. And so we're going to end today singing May the Long Time Sun as a special tribute to Barani. Somebody had it to help us.
Yeah. There's some people on Zoom saying sending love to Barani. And love you, Ronnie. Ruth is on. Gigi. Thanks you.
thank you so much. It was very meaningful to her to send her away. She angst over needing to make the decision, you know, but now she's settled and she's all set. There's one thing that Panyadeepa wanted to have. He wanted to have a place here. It has not manifested yet, where the Sangha could come, you know, when they've been a long time like that, and to offer care for them through the end of their life. But we're just not big enough yet, and we're not really set up for it. But I hope that one day we will be. I hope we don't get to be 88 years old and suddenly we're, you know, have to leave our communities and go into some cold, sterile place to live out our days. So there's a great future for Heartwood, not just the things that we're doing now, because we're not doing that much. But what we are trying to do is set up for a long future for practitioners. So we appreciate everything that you offer, of your time, of your energy, you know, of your resources, your wisdom. Thank you everybody out there in Sangha land. And thank those of you who are here close with us too. May you be well and happy and peaceful. May no harm come to you and no danger. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life.